Hello, I'm Diane Longsdale. I'm the Associate Assistant Principal for Science here at Preston School. I wanted to give you a rundown of the different courses that we offer in terms of science here. There are two courses that we do run with. There's the Combined Science, where students will come out at the end of Year 11 with 2 GCSE grades, both with the title Science. Those students studying that course will still study biology, chemistry and physics content. They will then sit 6 exams at the end of Year 11, 2 for biology, 2 for chemistry, 2 for physics. The exam board will then take the scores that they achieve for each of those 6 exams, add them together and come out with a double grade for the students. That could be, it could be that they get the same grade, so it could be a 5-5, or it could be that they split across 2 different grade boundaries, so it could be something like a 6-5. The other course that we run is the Triple Science course. With the Triple Science course, the students will come out with a separate GCSE for each of the 3 sciences. To do that, the way we study that is we study exactly the same units as the Combined Science course, but we will then add on additional content in each of the units. Because there is that additional content, it means that their exams at the end of Year 11, although they still have 6 exams, same as the combined, those exams will now be half an hour longer, so they're an hour and 45 minutes. The exam board will then collate the scores for the 2 biology papers and then give them a biology grade. We do have to really monitor and assess, and we are constantly reviewing the students that are on each of these science courses to make sure that we're giving the students the best possible chance of achieving their target grades. Students that study the Triple Science, because they still have 10 hours a fortnight to cover this content in, the same as the Combined Science, we do need to work at a much faster pace, and some students do find that faster pace a little bit difficult to keep up with. The key thing to be aware of is that it does not disadvantage a student either way for which course they study. If they want to go on do an A-level in science, they would need to have 2 GCSE grades, which could be 2 5 grades, it could be 2 6 grades, depending on which college that they go to. With the Triple Science, obviously what we're doing is we might find that they get slightly lower grades. This slide gives you a bit of an overview of the content that students will be studying, regardless of whether they're doing the Combined Science or the Triple Science course. So you can see there's lots of interesting topics that the students do look at, and we do delve into a little bit more in some of those units for the triple content. The way the exam board set out the exams does help a little bit. So all the paper 1 for each science will typically be done before May half term, with the paper 2s normally being done after half term. To give you an overview for Year 11, the mock exams in November will be paper 1 for all 3 science disciplines, and then the mock exams that we have in February of Year 11 will be paper 2. The way science has changed, and it has changed a hell of a lot over the last sort of 20 years, they have put an awful lot more emphasis on the application of knowledge. So in class we will quite often go through the knowledge that the students need to know, but then in an exam question they might suddenly get a question that's all about an axolotl, which has come up quite a few times. The students can get thrown by this to start off with, because they obviously sort of think, well, I don't know anything about that, I can't remember that, I don't know it. But they have to really be able to read into that question and work out actually what piece of knowledge is this question actually about. They do a lot more links to everyday situations, so they will try to sort of go, okay, we've learnt this topic, but we're now going to apply that to this situation that you see every day. The grading, obviously I did say earlier that with the Combined Science we do go on a 17-point system rather than the 1 to 9 that works with all the other subjects, and that's just because we've obviously got that double grade that we get for it. The coursework element has completely gone, so there's now no coursework element for science. What we do instead is we have what they call required practicals. Required practicals are ones that we have to study in class. They are the practicals that the exam board can ask questions on in the exam. So students really need to be able to get their head around those required practicals. The bit that they might find slightly different is that they might put a different spin on that practical. So they might change a different, have a different independent variable. So students need to be aware that it's not just the way we would look at it, but they need to adapt that slightly. The other key difference that we've had is Ofqual has stated that there is a lot of maths in science, and for that reason, every single science paper, if you're doing the combined science, there must be 20% of maths covered in that paper. For the triple, there should be 10% in every biology paper, 20% in a chemistry paper, and 30% in a physics paper. With both combined and triple science, there is the option to do the higher tier, which is obviously from grades 4 up to grade 9, and also then the foundation tier, which is grades 1 to 5. If they're studying the foundation tier paper, the highest level that the maths will be Key Stage 3. If they're doing the higher tier paper, the highest level that the maths will be is GCSE foundation level. The big advice that I try to give to the students, and we do try to do this quite a lot in class when we do things like walking, talking mocks, so walking them through the paper, students really need to be able to remember that they have to read all the question, and that's not just jump to where they suddenly see a mark and go for that bit. They need to read all the information provided. Lots of the answers are quite often in that information, so it's really important that they read that, they understand what's happening before they start to read what they're actually being asked. They might find it useful to have highlighters with them, go through with the highlighter and highlight the key words. They might want to then scribble around the exam paper. What can they remember about that key word? It might be that if they've got a big question and they suddenly go, oh, it's talking about water, that means I'm talking about osmosis. So I'm going to write the key words next to my exam question: osmosis, high water concentration, low water concentration, selectively permeable membrane. So they then get their keywords. Students are then advised that they can put those keywords into the right order. And then once they've got the keywords in the right order, then they need to structure their sentences around those keywords. Once they've done that, they can then proofread their answer. So it's about trying to break down that question before they even write their response that they want. The other key thing that we would say is there are a lot of physics equations that students need to know. They don't get given them in the exam, so there's 21 for combined and there's 23 for triple physics. The students are quite often able to do the maths that they need for a physics paper. However, if they don't know the equation, then it doesn't help. So I would suggest that they find ways of trying to learn them. So it might be that they want to use revision cards, keyword on the front of the revision card and the equation on the back. If they pick up 5 and just look at them once a day for a whole week, and then get someone at home to test them. Once they've learnt all those 5, add another 2 into the mix. So next week they're looking at 7. If they gradually build it up, they should be able to learn those equations. With the higher tier students, if they have a physics question that's normally 5 or 6 marks, quite often they should be thinking, hang on a minute, this means I've probably got a conversion to do here, so conversion between 2 different units, or it might be that I've got to use several different equations to reach the answer. So then they have to work out which 2 equations they're going to use. I've already explained about the required practical questions, being aware that they might have to look at a different independent variable. Revision suggestions, these are just some of the ones that we've got. Obviously, I've said about the physics equations, try and get them to learn them. There's lots and lots of YouTube revision videos. There's a lot from Malmesbury Science, which is a Malmesbury school, and they do an awful lot around the required practicals. They run through the required practicals so students can go back through and look at some of them. There's also free science lessons on there, which are very, very precise with the content that students need to know. Revision guides that obviously we have made available for students to purchase through the school at a reduced rate. There's past papers from AQA, so we have some in school if students want to come and get some from us, or they can download them from the AQA website. Seneca is an online revision resource. It's all free. Students should have access to that through the portal. That's really quite good to just get them checking their revision knowledge. The other one to look at, there are lots of revision apps on phones that students use. So Gojimo is just one that I've had students mention before. Sometimes they're really, really good. If your student gets a bus to school, sometimes just sort of sat on the school bus and just going through some of their revision sort of flashcards that they've got on those apps really is quite a useful use of that time. The other thing to say is that every student will have at least 2 science teachers, if not 3 science teachers, and it's about using those science teachers. Do come and ask us for support. You know, if you don't understand something that one of us has taught, come and ask the other one of us. We all explain it in different ways, and hopefully that will help you suddenly go, oh yeah, no, that makes sense now. So my big thing is, if there's any further questions that you've got, please do email me. My email address is diane.longsdale@prestonschool.co.uk.